Hi everyone, welcome to our Stuff channel and another tutorial in Flutter. In this video, we will explore designing and implementing mobile authentication screens using Flutter. Whether you are building a login screen, OTP verification, or a country selection screen, this tutorial will guide you through the steps to create a clean and responsive UI. In the previous video on implementing the onboarding screen, I created a project and did the initial setup. You can also watch the onboarding video first or just watch this video because completely separate from the previous video. If you are ready to level up your Flutter skills, let's get started. First, I'll create a new feature for authentication and add the required directories to the project. I created directory for the data layer and a directory for the presentation layer. Then within the presentation layer, I create 3 directories for blog, screens, and widgets. Now I create a new file for the authentication page. I import the material package and create a stateless widget class. Now I add a scaffold and an app bar. Now I go to the main file and replace the onboarding class with the authentication class. Now let's implement the first authentication screen. I previously exported the images used in this screen from Figma and now add them to the project. I use the Flutter gem package for asset addressing. You can also use this package or directly address the assets. I have already added the Flutter gem package to the project and configured its output. Now I call the command related to this package to generate the necessary classes. Now I return to the authentication screen and start implementing it. I add an app scaffold file to the project and add a custom scaffold to this file, which includes all the parameters of a scaffold and has a safe area widget inside it. It also limits the body of the scaffold to the large sizes for responsive purposes. You can also use the default scaffold widget instead of this custom scaffold. I return to the authentication screen and replace the scaffold widget with the app scaffold widget. because we need the car image to be placed on the top of the ground image. I add a stack widget and set its alignment to bottom center. Now I add a size box widget with a height of 500 and width is equal to screen width. And inside it, I add the ground image with the width parameter set to none. Assets dot images dot ground dot path and fit parameter is equal to box fit dot none. Then I add the position widget and adjust its bottom and the left, as you can see. And now I place the car image inside it. Assets dot images dot car name dot path. Now I refresh the project and you can see the output of the work up to this point. I change the background of the screen to pure black and remove the padding around of the screen. I refresh again and you can see the result. Now let's add the welcome text and description at the top of the screen. I go to the widgets folder and add 3 widgets for the title, subtitle, and spacing to the project. The subtitle widget has a gray color, which I add to the color class and pass to this widget. If color parameter is null, I set the app colors dot primary color. As you can see, I have added 2 classes for vertical and horizontal spacing to the project. Now I add a positioned widget and set its top parameter to 0. Inside it, I create a full width black container. And then I add a column widget inside it. Now I add the welcome and description widgets inside the column and then I copy the text from Figma and paste them into the widgets. The second title has the primary color of the project, so I add the primary color to it and add the necessary spacing above and below. Now I add the subtitle widget. I refresh the project. The color of the subtitle widget is incorrect, so I fix it. Now let's add the two buttons at the bottom of the screen. I previously created two buttons, one field and one outline, exactly like the design. And now I add these two buttons to the project. As you can see, I have added necessary styles to these buttons. Now I add a column widget and set its main alignment parameter to end. And now I add the outlined button to the screen and copy its text from Figma and paste it. Then I add a horizontal margin to this button After that, I implement the second button and copied its text from Figma and add it to the button. And finally, I add some spacing at the bottom of the screen. I refresh the project and you can see the result. Now let's add the icons from the design to the buttons. I exported some of the icons used in the project and add them all to the project. Then I go to the pubspec YAML file and add the icon addresses to this file. And now I call the command related to the Flutter gem package to generate the necessary classes. And finally, I add the email icon to the email button, assets dot icons dot mail dot path, and the call icon to the mobile number button, assets dot icons dot call dot path. Now I refresh the project and you can see the output. As you can see, I have added the switch icons to the button widgets I previously implemented. Alright, I stopped recording the video and then pushed the code I wrote so far to GitHub. Now let's continue implementing the project. I go to the utils directory and add a method for navigation between screens. Now I create a new class for mobile number login screen. I import the material package and create a stateless widget class. Then I add an app scaffold and an app bar. The reason I don't pass any parameters to the app bar is that I only want the back icon to return to the previous screen. Then I add a scroll widget and inside it I add a column widget. Then I add some spacing and after that I add a logo image used in the design to the screen. And after that, I add the title and subtitle of the screen and copy the text from Figma and paste them into the corresponding widgets, as you can see. Now I call push method and pass the mobile login screen inside it. I reload the project and you can see the result. Very well. Now let's implement the country selection widget for the mobile number code. This widget can be implemented with a list style. but I have previously implemented a reusable style and added to the project. I create a file called apply style and add my reusable list style to it. This list style widget, in addition to the internal Flutter list style parameters, has additional parameters for setting icons and borders, which you can see. Now I add some spacing again and then call the list style widget. I added and pass the necessary parameters to it. And now I implement the trailing part of it. Currently placing an empty text, which I will complete later. I reload the project and you can see the result up to this point. Now let's implement the text form field for the mobile number. I have previously created a complete widget for the text fields in this project and styled it according to the Figma design. And now I add it to the project. You can temporarily use Flutter's internal text field or take the source of this custom field from my GitHub repo. I'll put my GitHub link in the video description. Now I return to the login screen and import the text field and pass the necessary parameters to it. Wrap with a form widget. I create a variable for the text field controller and a global key variable for text field validation. Final form key is equal to global key form state. Now I pass the variables I created to the form widget and the text field widget. And then I copy the text field title from Figma and paste it inside the label text parameter. And I set the input type of the text form field to phone and set the max length parameter to 10. Then I implement a simple validator for the text form field widget. Note that this is an educational project and the mobile number validation may vary depending on different countries. Now I need to add the phone icon to the text form field. I use prefix icon parameter and I call app switch viewer widget and pass inside it my icon. I rerun the project and you can see the output. Now to fix the icon issue, I add padding around it. Now let's implement the country selection screen. I, s- I exported the flag image of some countries from Figma and added them to the project. Then I add the flag addresses to the pubspec YAML file. And then I call the command related to the Flutter gem package to generate the necessary classes. Now I add a directory for sample data to the project and add a list of maps of countries to it. Now I create a file for the country selection screen. I import the material package and create the necessary stateless widget. Then I import the app scaffold widget and add an app bar widget and then copy the screen title from Figma and now add it to the app bar title. Now in the body of the screen, I add a list view builder widget, set the item count parameter equal to the length of the countries variable. and then I implement the item builder parameter. Inside it, I use the apply style widget to display the title, flag, and code of some countries. Now I return to the login screen and add the country selection screen to the country selection widget. I call push method and add the country selection screen inside it. Now I refresh the project and you can see the result. It seems there is an issue. I will investigate to fix it. The issue was due to the flag key. I passed the correct key and fixed the issue. Now I reload the project again and you can see the result. Alright, now let's style the screen title according to the Figma design. I go to the main file and set the center title parameter to true and then pass the appropriate font size inside text style uh, parameter. Now I refresh the project again and you can see the result. Now let's implement the logic for country selection. For this, I use Cubit. You can use any other state management for this purpose. I create a Cubit class and then complete its state class as you can see. Now I go to the Cubit class and pass the state class to it. And now in the Cubit class, I create the method for selecting a country that takes an index and sets it in the selected country parameter. Now I go to the login screen file to provide the Cubit class I created. I create a stateless class and then use the block provider widget to provide my Cubit class. I import the block provider and pass my screen inside it. Now in the country selection widget, instead of directly passing the country selection screen, I place it inside the plug provider.value widget so that I can use the Cubit I created in the country selection screen as well. Now I return to the country selection screen and create an instance of the Cubit class. And then I implement the untap parameter of the country items and call the country selection method inside it. And then passing the index to it, and then I call the pop method. I rerun the project and you can see the result. Now I return to the login screen and create the watch instance of the country selection Cubit. Final watch is equal to context.watch country selection Cubit. And now I go to the country selection widget. If the selected country parameter is null, the title should be country. Otherwise, the title should be the name of the selected country. Watch.state.countries watch.state.selected country. And I need name. All right. I reload the project and you can see that the selected country name is set. Now I also display the flag of the selected country next to the country name, as you can see. I reload the project again and you can see the result. And finally, I also display the code of the selected country. And I reload the project again. The style of the selected country code is slightly different from the Figma design. Let's fix the style of this text. I pass the appropriate font size to the text and fix the spacing. I reload the project and you can see the result. Alright, now let's implement the country search functionality according to the Figma design. For this, I use the app bar with a search switch package. I add it to the pubspec YAML file and run the pubget command to fetch the package. Now I return to the country selection screen and start implementing this package. I call the package widget and set the killer on close parameter to true, and then call the onChange method. Then I implement the app bar builder parameter and pass the app bar widget to it. And then inside the actions parameter, I create an icon button for search. I reload the project and you can see the result. Now I go to the country selection Cubit class to implement a method for searching countries. This method takes a query parameter and performs the country search based on it. If the query is an empty string, it sets all the countries in the country list. Otherwise, it performs the search. I use the where method for searching, which is an efficient and practical method for searching within lists in Flutter. I implement the search structure and finally place the result of this search in the country's parameter. Now I return to the country selection screen and call the implemented method in this screen and pass in the query to it. Now we need to call the start search method of the app bar with search switch package. Now, instead of reading the country list from the countries variable, we need to read it from the countries variable in the Cubit state class. As you can see, I swapped these variables. To access the Cubit state, I use the block builder widget and pass the Cubit class and state class to it. And finally, I perform the swap. I reload the project again, and you can see the result. Now we need to display the selected country code inside the text box as well. As you can see, I displayed this code inside the prefix text parameter. I reload the project and you can see the result. Very well. Let's implement the next button. I call the button widget I previously added to the project and set its title to next. Then I implement its onPressed method, as you can see. And inside this method, I check the validity of the phone number field and also check if a country is selected. And finally, I create a variable for the phone number, which is a combination of the number and the country code. And now I create a new class for OTP validation and pass a temporary title to it. And now I return to the login screen and call the push method, passing the OTP validation screen to it. And now I return to the OTP validation screen and create a parameter for the phone number. so that it can receive the phone number from the previous screen. And finally, I pass the phone number variable to the OTP validation screen. Now let's implement the OTP verification screen. As you can see in Figma, this screen has a design similar to the login screen, and to implement the OTP structure, I use the pinInput package, which I have added to the project. I back to the OTP verification screen, uh, and in body parameter, I add a single child scroll view widget, and inside it, I add a column widget. Then I place the image at the top of the screen and the title and subtitle inside column. I put some space and I call app title text widget, and I copy the necessary text from Figma and paste them into the corresponding widgets. And I call app subtitle text widget and copy text again and paste it. And finally, I reload the project and you can see the result. Now let's implement the OTP widget. As I mentioned, I use the pinInput package to implement the OTP. And I have previously created a complete widget for this purpose and added to the project. The widget I created is styled exactly like the Figma. Now I go to the colors class and create a new color called very light primary color. Now I return to the OTP verification screen and add a center widget first some space, and now I add the center widget, and then I call the app pinInput widget and pass the necessary parameters to it. Now I reload the project, and you can see the result. Alright, now let's implement the button part of the screen. I add a new button widget to the project, which is a text button, and I have styled it according to the Figma design. I back to the OTP verification screen, and I add some spacing, and then add the question sentence about receiving the code. And finally, I add the recent button to the screen. I reload the project again, and you can see the final result. Thank you for watching, and if this video was helpful to you, please subscribe to my channel and like and share the video. I'll see you again in the next video.